Pause the video, give this question a go yourself first. Okay, if I was doing this question, wants two features, maintainable program, maintainable, something which is easy to maintain, easy for me to keep going back to and update and use. Okay, so if I'm programming something, what makes it easy for me, for other people, including myself, to update and use? Well, obviously using procedures and functions, so using modules. So to make the code modular, which makes it easier to update. And I'm always going to give an example like def score, and then like score equals score plus 1. I can't use the same variable name as best procedure, so let's just call it scores. Okay, there you go. So that's one thing which makes your code easy, because you just find the procedural function to update and you can go straight there. Instead of having to find it in thousands of lines of code, you go straight to the functional procedure. What else though? Well, meaningful identifier names. That means variable names, array names, constant names. Easy to recognize. Why would I do that? Well, easy to recognize purpose of variable, constant, or array, which means if not only is it easy for me to understand the purpose, easy to track. So i.e. score equals 4. That'll be meaningful. Another thing we could do is use of comments in my code to explain specific sections. Purpose. So you can add in your code hashtags. Hashtags are like written comments which allow other people to understand what the heck you're doing with your code, or helps remind you after a period. Let's imagine you haven't done some coding, you're making an app and you haven't looked at like line 40 for a long time because you've got about 1 million lines of code. When you do go back to line 40, there's a comment which explains what that's doing again, so you know how to try and work it out. All of these make it easy for me to maintain. That means go back to and update and use and change or whatever it needs it to do or fix later on. That's what maintainable means. Pause the video, give this question a go yourself first. Okay, so let's break this down with using pseudocode. And what we want to do is store something, as in a string, in phrase. What does that mean? It means assign. Right. So we want to make a variable called phrase. And we want to put inside of it, remember in pseudocode it's that instead of equal sign, the string, this, the beginning is the most important part. That is step 1. Step 2, calculate and output the length of the string. So when it means calculate the length, I need to use length. Simple as that. Just because it says calculate doesn't mean it's doing anything complicated, because length does it for us. So I'm going to make, well, I could do it 2 ways. I can make a variable and store it in there. So I could do this like length of string equals, I can do length inside of it phrase. I could do it like that. So it's going to count each letter and display it. Sorry, and store it in this variable, and then we can just do output that. So that would output the length of the string. That's one way of doing it. Or I can just simply go output like print and just leave it like that. So we get display without storing it into a variable for length. So it'll be like 20 or whatever it is. The next thing he wants us to do is output the string in uppercase. Well, we know through our previous experiences, we've got things such as substring. We've used that before quite a few times. We've also got L-case. We've also got U-case. So which one of these do we need to use? Obviously, we want to output, and it's going to be U-case. And what is it that we're going to display in uppercase? The variable phrase. And now it wants us to write the output to our pseudocode. So you need to add up this whole string, including the spaces. So the first, this will be line 1, this is line 2, this is line 3. So line 2 will output, and line 3 is going to output. So line 2 is going to output 40, not 20, that's just a guess. And what's it going to display? It's going to display, very simply, the beginning, that says end by the way, is the most important part. That's it. Pause the video, give this question a go yourself first. Okay, it says identify 3 different ways that design of a solution to a problem can be presented. So if I was doing this question, I'd be thinking, what the heck? Then I'll break it down. Design, where have I learned about design? Oh yeah, we've got analysis, design, coding, testing, and sometimes the example would throw in evaluation, which is like evaluating how you've done. Have you met the project? Yes or no? Have you done a good job? Yes or no? So we're focusing on design. So what sort of things are happening at design? What sort of activities would I do to help show a solution? Well, I could do a flowchart. That'll be one thing. I could do pseudocode. That's a design technique to plan out code. Or I could do a structure chart or structure diagram. And that shows the relationship between the different modules. So we could have like, if this was a game like Sonic, we would have Sonic, we would have collect rings, so a function which handles that, enemies, a function which handles enemies, extra life, a function which handles that, controls, a function which handles Sonic's controls. And that would be a structure chart, so it allows us to see the relationship between different functions, which again will make it easier for us to code when it comes around to it. Pause the video, give these questions a go yourself first. It's not going to be easy. Okay, so let's begin. We've got variables P and Q are used to store data in a program. P stores a string, Q stores a character. Write the pseudocode to declare the variables P and Q. Okay, so we've done declare on the video, which is titled pseudocode video 2. So we've got declare. And we want P to be a string. Just like that. And let's declare Q as well. Declare Q. And that's going to be the data type char, because it's one character it's storing. Now let's assign a value into them. So P will equal the world, and Q will equal W. Write a pseudocode algorithm to convert P to be uppercase. That's easy. So I want P. Well, I can make another variable, I suppose, but no, we're going to use P. It doesn't tell us to make more variables. So we're going to take whatever's in P, and we're going to make it uppercase and put it back into P. So if we've got the world, it's going to put into P again, the world, but this time all in caps. It's then going to ask us to find the position of Q, as in the letter W. So that's basically what it wants to do. We've got the world, and it wants us to find what position the W is in. That's basically what we want. So we need a variable which is going to be counting this. So I'm going to do a variable called counter. I'm going to set that to become 1 to begin with. So it's going to count, and we're going to have a variable called position 0. And we're going to basically have a loop. Let's do it over here. So while position is equal to 0, and let's just make this a bit bigger, and counter is less than length of P. So what we're going to be basically saying is this: we want to loop through this word. Now we could have used a for loop as well. So it's absolutely fine using a for loop. So I'm going to show you the for loop solution in a second. And we're going to try and find the letter W. When we find the letter W, we're going to give it a position like position 5. So when we find the position 5, the loop will stop. The loop will stop because this condition's been met. Well, this condition hasn't been met anymore. But let's imagine that we loop through and the letter we're looking for isn't there. We need a way for it to stop, and that's what this is doing. Whilst counter is letter length of the word, we're going to loop. When we're at the end, it's going to stop. Okay. Now, this is where we're going to use some of our pseudocode expertise. Now how is it, what can we do in pseudocode to grab that letter first? Well, we're going to use substring. And we're going to take P, the variable, counter, which is 1, so the first letter, and we just want 1 to count 1 letter. And we're going to basically check to see if it equals Q, Q being W. And with if statements, we're going to do a then in pseudocode here. Well, so if it matches, so if T matches W, we found our position already. So position equals the counter. But obviously T doesn't match W, so it's going to loop again. So we need, in a second, counter to go up. And there we go. So counter's going to go up by 1. It's going to then be P, counter, which is 2. So it's going to take the second letter, H. Does it match W? No. E, then the space, then the W. So it'll be 1. Actually, I'm not good. Yeah, well, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it'll be position number 5. So if substring P, counter, so let's imagine we get to W, 5, 1. So we just get the W equals Q. Yes, it does match. We're going to put a counter, which is 5, into position. So give a value position after the algorithm has been executed with the data. Well, position is going to be 5. It's basically saying, where have we found the letter W based on all of this code? It's going to be found in number 5. You could do this as a for loop. So if you want to write down this code, do so. But as a for loop, you could do. So keep this code here. But well, actually we're going to do for count. I'm going to change counter to be count. Let's make it counter even. So for count, in range 1 to length of P. And we're going to do the same code again, but instead of using counter, so I should put that as count, I'm just going to use count. If substring P count, comma 1 equals Q, then I'm going to put then here. We want to put in position counter and if. And as it's a for loop, we want count to go up by 1. And it's not counter, it's counter. Let's get rid of counter, keep going back to counter. Next, count. There you go, that's another way of doing it. So we're using substring. Let me give you another scenario. Okay, so let's give this a go first. Pause the video, see if you can work out what's going on. This question was made by ChatGPT. Okay, so write to the code statements declare the variables x and sub. So we're going to have, we need to do our declare. So we declare x, declare sub, and they're both going to be strings. We're now going to put into x the value innovative minds, and in sub we're going to put into it VA. It can't be a char because it's storing multiple characters. We want to then convert x to lowercase, so that's easy enough. Let's do the code here. So let's do x equals lowercase x. Find the position of substring. Okay, so we need to find where VA is in our sentence. So it's here. That's what we need to find. And we need to return the first position, so of the V in this situation. So whenever we find the V, A, we return the first position V. So really, let's do the question C first. It should be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We should find it in position 5. But if we had this, let me just zoom in. Let's imagine the word was innovative. We're looking for VA. So check these. We want it to check it in pairs. Are these two V8? No. Are these two V8? No. Are these two V8? Yes. Stop. That's what we want to do. So I'm going to use a for loop. So for, let's just make some room. And I'm going to do count in range 1 to length and the length of x, but what we want to do